This is a Vectrex running a lunar lander game. The remarkable thing about it is that the game is written in interactive interpreted BASIC. Watch what I can do. I plug a USB cable into the cartridge and bring up a terminal emulator on my PC. I hit Ctrl-C and break out of the lunar lander game into debug mode. Notice that the display freezes, but it's still being drawn. I can print out the values of variables. I can set a breakpoint and run the program a frame at a time. I can experiment with the graphics on the screen. For example, I can see what it would look like if I drew the lunar module larger. Or let's say I didn't like where the text was on the screen. I could experiment with changing its position. All these changes appear immediately on the Vectrex screen. This makes writing and debugging Vectrex games far easier than it's ever been before. It all works through the Vectrex32 smart cart, which plugs into the Vectrex's cartridge slot. On one side of the smart cart is a 32-bit microcontroller, the microchip PIC32. On the other side is a dual-port memory chip. The basic interpreter and the game run on the PIC32. 30 times per second, the PIC32 writes commands into the dual-port memory, telling the 6809 in the Vectrex what to draw on the screen. The 6809 executes those commands just like it would execute the program in a game cartridge. It also writes the status of the game controller into the dual-port memory, and the PIC32 reads it. The Vectrex becomes nothing more than an input-output device, displaying lines on the screen, playing sounds, and checking the controllers for button presses and joystick movements. The PIC32 is vastly more powerful than the 6809 in the Vectrex. Let's look at the specs. The PIC32 has a 32-bit processor, while the 6809 is an 8-bit processor. The PIC32 runs at 200 MHz versus the 6809's 1.6 MHz. The PIC32 has a floating point unit, which is great for scaling and rotating images on the screen, while the 6809 is limited to 8-bit integer arithmetic with a few 16-bit capabilities. The PIC32 has 2 MB of flash memory, while the Vectrex has 8K of ROM, or up to 40K when a game cartridge is plugged in. The PIC32 has 512K of memory versus the Vectrex's 1K of memory. Since the game logic is running on the PIC32, Vectrex games can be more sophisticated than ever while being easier to write. More information is available on my website, Vectrex32.com. You can download extensive documentation that explains how to write programs for the smart cart. You can subscribe to news about firmware upgrades that add features, and you can join forums where you can talk about Vectrex32, request features, report bugs, and download games that other smart cart users have written. And of course, there's information about buying your own Vectrex32 smart cart.